Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me fine? I got a new microphone, a cheap, like $40 one off of Amazon. Hopefully, it does the trick. But we will see. Anyways, how's it going? This live stream, for those of you who are just joining in, is going to be a live stream. Okay, the audio is good. I just heard myself. Yeah, I just wanted to answer some general astrophotography questions people may have. Um, Things about the observatory or just, anything general about gear or anything else. So that's what this stream is for. I'm going to go through and answer a bunch of the questions that I have here on the question form, which I had posted last week. I haven't looked at any of these yet, so I got like 20 responses here straight off the dome. I'm going to go through all of these, and then we are going to go through some questions in the live chat once I'm done responding to these. And then afterwards, I have an image to edit, and so I'm going to break off the stream and just do some editing for the observatory. I have a dolphin head nebula image that I'm going to process, and I'm going to share my data with everyone at the observatory and let everyone work along with the image and the process. So let's see here. Yeah, I posted this Q&A form last week with everyone's questions. So first off, can you keep a pier for a month or have one pier but one telescope for a few months and send another one and return the old one? I am kind of confused by this question. You can keep a pier for as long as you want. If that's only a month, then yeah, sure, but that seems like a lot of waste to get a remote telescope pier for only a month. I would not recommend this, but if you want to do it, I'm not going to stop you. How tall is the pier from the ground? Similarly, do I need extra long cables if the PC is mounted to the telescope itself? Okay, so for those who don't know anything about the observatory, everyone's telescopes are basically on piers. Let me see if I can show an image. Yeah, so everyone's telescope is on these metal piers, basically. And this is where people actually do their astrophotography from. So what was this question? They want to know how tall it is and if you need extra long cables. So our piers, depending on the size of your scope, they can range from 2.5 feet up to, I think, 3.5 or 4 feet. And the variant sizes of piers we have for different types of scopes. So if you have a EQ6R or a Mach 2 or a GM1000, we make short piers, 2.5 foot tall piers. If you're in the light tier, that way you're at the same height as your neighbor scopes. So sometimes they're that small. Other times, they might be slightly taller for smaller mounts. It's really the size of the mount that dictates the height of the pier. But as you can see in this diagram, we usually attach mini PCs to the top side of, or the upper end of the pier itself. And this works really well. If you are mounting it to your scope, this is a concern though with the cable lengths. Mostly it's an issue for your mini PC power. If you have a mini PC that's powered off of a USB, sorry, not USB, the nuke power supply cables are actually pretty short. So you should think about this in advance because we might have to move your mini PC down to the pier if you don't have adequate extension cables to run from the AC port up to the top of the scope. And your AC port is going to end up being likely at the top of your pier because you'll have like a CASA strip or some other power strip to where you can plug in, run your cable from the top of the pier to the scope. And that way it's a shorter run. It's only like 3.5, 4 feet or so to make that cable run. I hope that helps. Having image remotely for some time now, do you find the process gets monotonous at all? Where do you derive the most joy in the hobby? That is a fantastic question. I get my most joy from the hobby in editing the images, and also planning for shots and doing like more unique compositions that otherwise wouldn't be so possible to do. I come from kind of a weird perspective though, because like while I do a lot of remote observing, I actually do a ton of in-person observing now because I live full time at the observatory. So I derive both the in-person experience and the remote experience because I'm fully involved in both. And I do enjoy the in-person experience as well. But yeah, I would say for me, editing for sure. The only monotonous part of the process, I would say, is setting up telescopes. That can get pretty monotonous because it's mostly just the same thing over and over again. But yeah, all in all, I think I enjoy basically every aspect of the hobby. I don't look at editing and say, oh, I don't enjoy that. And I think remote observing leans more into being able to do better editing. So for me, it's the processing. Can a mini pier accommodate a 60 millimeter refractor if I wanted to switch from a Samyang 135 millimeter lens setup? Yes, we have, I think, one or two ASCAR Vs already at the observatory in mini piers. So that should be all well and good. Are there plans to open a Southern Hemisphere location? Yeah, yeah. I think about it every day, basically. So we'll see. We'll see. It's definitely something we talk about a lot, and I'm all for it. I will move down to the Southern Hemisphere. If I want to change from AnyDesk to another remote access application, can someone provide a step-by-step instruction for dummies to do this? It seems that I need to disconnect from AnyDesk in order to connect to a different remote app, but I'm concerned if I hit the disconnect button in AnyDesk, I won't be able to reconnect. Yeah, so if you watch my YouTube tutorial, my second video in the series for Remote 101, I show you how to set up Chrome Remote Desktop. I would highly suggest that you just set up Chrome Remote Desktop because your life is going to be really, really easy. I run a lot of telescopes off of Chrome Remote Desktop. In fact, we're here right now, so I can actually show you all of the different PCs that I have at my fingertips via Chrome Remote, and everything runs super well. For example, I can open up my scope in Chile. I can open up the scope in Namibia. I can open up the Starfront Triple Rasa. I can open up the Starfront FSQ 106. And then, boom, I have access to all of these telescopes. And it's super stable. Never gives me any issues. So just watch my tutorial video and it'll explain how to get set up on that. And the cool thing is that with Chrome Remote, you can be logged into both Chrome Remote and AnyDesk at the same time, so you have a functional backup in case one of them fails, and AnyDesk is going to be the one which fails. Have you considered doing any Astro rental programs or rent to own? Some of my friends would love to try out Astrophotography, but dropping the 3 to 6K just to get started is cost prohibitive. It would be really cool to try it out for a month or two without such a large upfront commitment. Yeah, this is something I also think about pretty much every day is, I mean, we want to make Astro in general more accessible to everyone. And I feel like we're addressing one side of the equation, which is like having a place where it's actually worth doing the astrophotography at. But the other half of the equation is making things cheap to get into. Because I still think probably the number one barrier is just the upfront investment in the gear, which is really, really expensive. So I don't know. I haven't looked into the rents to own model too much, but I have looked into just renting out systems on a monthly basis before. And it's interesting, but then I have to assume the cost of the gear, which is still not cheap, even for me. So it's a thought, but it's a difficult one. We'll see. Something will probably happen along these lines at some point. Will you need access to the mini PC to polar align the system initially? In general, no, we don't require this. The way we do polar alignments here at the observatory is we use these tiny mini PC laptops and we use SharpCap. And what we'll do is we'll get a USB 3 and we'll plug our USB 3 into your camera. And then we polar align in SharpCap using your telescope. And we find that this gives us the most consistent and accurate result. But sometimes people prefer to have their stuff done with Nina 3-point polar alignment. And in those cases, yes, I do generally ask that people give me an AnyDesk because it's easier to just remote into your PC than to like configure your whole setup on my computer. So sometimes yes, but most of the time no. And on another side note, an interesting thing I wanted to talk about for a while is all of the different polar alignment programs like Nina 3-point polar alignment, SharpCap, the ZWO program, the PolMaster. All of them give you different numbers for your polar alignment accuracy. And it's very hard to tell what is actually the best. I haven't been too impressed with the ASI Air routine, and I don't really like Nina's routine. I really think SharpCap is probably the most accurate of the bunch. Oh, there's also PhD. PhD2 has an algorithm, but one thing you wouldn't expect is that all of these different programs will give you a different number for your polar alignment accuracy depending on how you measure it. So, fun fact. And the reason I know this is because we'll polar align someone in SharpCap and then they'll go to measure their polar alignment and 3-point polar align. Then we'll go to redo the polar alignment and our polar alignment says it's good, but Nina disagrees. So there's a difference in all these algorithms. And I don't think anyone really knows that yet. Is there a maintenance service available to clean optics, check focus on scope, or recheck the polar alignment? Currently, no. In general, inviting a service like this creates work where it is most likely not needed. Checking focus on the guide scope is something that the individual user can do and will do every single night that they run. And polar alignment is something that really also does not or should not need to be checked. Cleaning the optics is something which is the only thing that's really interesting to me here. And the reality with cleaning telescopes is that it'll be like once every 6 months or once a year that you have to clean a telescope before you may notice any optical effects. And the way that it happens is you'll start to lose contrast in your images, but it'll be really hard to tell. So when I do see telescopes that are dirty, I'll give them a courtesy wipe off. Like if I'm working on someone's ticket and I'm like, oh, hey, their stuff's really dusty, I'll just, spray it off and make sure it's clean. So I give courtesy cleanings, but if ever you want your telescope cleaned, you can just submit a ticket, say, hey, can you clean my telescope? And then we'll go through and clean your stuff, or send you a picture if it's already clean and say, hey, you're good to go already. So, but in terms of making that a service that's packaged, nah, I don't think that that's gonna happen. Do you collimate newts after install? Yeah, I collimate everything. I collimate epsilons, newts, Ritchie-creations, SCTs, CDKs. I've collimated basically every type of telescope out here. So yeah, we do a lot of it. Um, Collimation currently isn't something that's included in the installation process, but it's something that only takes me, 10-15 minutes. It's super quick to do, especially for a newt because we just use a laser. We don't have to do it at night, so it's pretty easy. How do you give your images that soft but sharp look? When I see your images on Instagram, I'm just wondering what your processing is like. The images are always so sharp without being noisy while still having a soft look. Um, the soft look comes from adding glow in post processing. I really like adding glow wherever I can, both to the stars and to the nebulas. So I'll do sometimes this process called an Orton glow, which is common in landscape photography. You can apply this to deep sky photography pretty easily, or you can also just apply like a screen blended glow where you basically Gaussian blur your image and you screen on the blurred copy of the image to add in some extra glow, and it adds a lot of atmosphere. So I'll process an image like normal, and then I'll see wherever I can add in softness or glow or anything that just enhances the vibe. Will there be an option between a standard and a heavy pier? There are no plans for this currently, but I can tell you the way that tier sizes either get formed or modified is if we begin to receive new data by what telescopes show up here. So if we had, like 50 telescopes all of a sudden that were somehow floating in the range between the standard and the heavy, and we think that we could improve the density of the floor plan by modifying the tiers, then this is something that we would do. Because obviously we don't want to have a bunch of heavy piers with small telescopes that don't fully consume the floor space. We want to utilize the floor space as much as possible. So if those telescopes show up in a way that warrants that tier, then yes, but that hasn't happened yet, so no. Does the novelty and fun of working on Astro setup wear off after working on so many different people's setups? Does it get boring and repetitive? I wouldn't say the novelty or the fun wear off. Fun is an interesting term to use to describe setting up telescopes. But there are portions that are repetitive. There are portions that are boring, but doing setup of other people's telescopes adds like new layers of interest, and a lot of excitement sometimes. Like we get excited to see like any new telescope that comes out. I basically will see within a week or so, like all the new William Optics scopes, the Pleiades, the new Red Cat 91. Like I'm already seeing all these new scopes, so it's kind of nice. Like unbox a telescope, I'm like, oh hey, there's that new piece of kit, the new piece of gear that just came out. I get to see it basically immediately, whatever it is. There's some setups when you open it, it just makes you happy to see. Like you see a 80 millimeter refractor on an AM5, and you just know like it's going to be an easy time. It's going to be great. And there's also working with the customers. A lot of our customers are very funny, and so sometimes setting up people's telescopes can actually, be pretty funny depending on like the instructions they give or anything else. So yeah, there are parts that are boring and repetitive, but there's new interesting things that come with doing it at an observatory. Does Starfront focus the guide scopes when they set up new systems? Yeah, we focus everything. And since we polar line through your main camera, we also focus the main OTA. So by the time you get your stuff, basically everything is going to be in focus immediately. Recent IP reconfig in Building 3 caused me to reconnect to everything with new IP addresses. Still struggling to connect to my mount. Is there something I need to do to prevent this from being a problem in the future? Thanks. I don't really know much about networking, to be honest. All of our networking is done by Hero Newton, and he's on our Discord. So if you tag Hero, you could do it in technical issues. I don't know if there's or community help. We might have a channel for that. Or if you even wanted to submit a ticket and tag Hero in it and ask him a question, he's more than happy to help answer any kind of networking stuff or queries you might have, because I do not know anything about networking. All I know is I take the Ethernet cable and put it in, and the magic internet comes to life. Is it possible to add equipment to a setup that's already installed? Specifically, you want to add a power box and the ZWCAA. Yeah, we can add whatever. Anything can be added. Just make a ticket, say, hey, my stuff showed up, or I'm shipping whatever. And when it gets here, we'll unbox it and get it set up as you want. And then it's just the technical support time for installing the new gear. I'm interested in the practical side of your business. By the way, this question that says help, that was me. That was a test. All right. I'm interested in the practical side of the business. Do you have shifts with multiple people working 24/7 since you need to be there to handle problems at night? Do you do other things at night, like set up new rigs? Or is it easier to do during the day? Do employees live on site? We mostly see the buildings, and there are other buildings where packages are received and unpacked and others boxed up to be shipped out. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's a lot of questions at once. I'll break it down here. Do you have shifts with multiple people working 24/7? We have like one generalized shift. We don't work 24/7, but in general, we do work 7 days a week. The amount of time we work per each day, or what is like theoretically scheduled on the shift, is different depending on if it's a weekend, if it's a holiday, or also if it's winter or summer. We change our hours with the setting of the sun. So currently, we basically work from when we get up to 9:30 p.m. at night for Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we go 1 hour past astronomical dark. And then after that, we just kind of don't do technical issues after that. However, there are times when there's more demand on having to install or do other types of work. And sometimes, like, if we're just feeling the grind that day, we'll just like push through and work completely past our hours. You know, it just depends on what we feel. Some days, like if we have a clear night streak, I think back in October or so, we had a clear night streak of like 35 days, and we were just kind of pooped after that. So we made a announcement. We were like, yeah, we're not doing anything today, just because doing that much night work for so long can get pretty heavy. And up until mid-October, we were working until 11:30 p.m. instead of 9:30, and this was before we shifted to winter hours. So it was just a lot of hard work with a lot of clear nights. Cloudy nights give us a little bit of a break, but yeah. Do you do other things at night, like set up new rigs? Yeah, sometimes we install at night. In the deep parts of the summer, it is a lot more fun to install at night on a cloudy night. However, a clear or a cloudy night in the summer is pretty rare. So we do enjoy installing on those days when it is a thing. But install for the most part it's best done in the day, just because of the light. It's easy to make a mistake in the dark. And so that's why we turn the lights on in the buildings when it's cloudy to install if we wanted to. Do employees live on site? Yes. I live on site full time, and so does everyone else for the most part. We see mostly observatory buildings. Are there other buildings where packages are received and unpacked? Yes. So you'll see all of this stuff in our site map, which our website is going to get revamped pretty soon. We have currently 8 observatory buildings, and then we have a shipping room. And the shipping room is where we install imaging trains and set up a lot of the telescopes themselves, and where we also prepare to ship back out boxes. The shipping room is kind of like I think it's maybe 14 by 14 feet, maybe a bit bigger. I have a bad reference scale in my head for that, but we just doubled the size of it actually. So, yeah. How many are employed there, and in what roles? Right now, I think our team is like seven or eight people. Um, there's like Hero that does networking, um, Josh and Dustin, who are part of the founders of the business, along with me, and Nathan, who's here for tech support, Colton, who helps do tech support and like general like manly labor that we're not as good at. Nathan, of course. So yeah, we have a pretty, our team is expanding. So yeah, as we get more scopes, the challenge is like supporting scopes and technical labor is always the hardest thing. Um, but we do find that remote systems that have been going for maybe like 1 to 2 months, once someone gets through their growing pains, then things kind of mellow out with, you know, how much work it actually takes to support a remote system. So when there's like a new building, for example, building 5, when we had maybe like 50 systems coming online in short order, absolute nightmare to support. But buildings 1 and 2 are pretty easy to support now. But that's something we're always thinking about is how much telescope can one person support. I'd like to support an effort to create a dark sky community for Brady. I have SQMs, laptops, and your surveyed Cedar Park Fort Trail out to Fort Davis, Texas. Happy to help out. That could be pretty cool. Um, I I want to look into that more. Shoot me an email at bray@starfront.space, because I would like to future guard the dark skies everywhere, but out here certainly. So yeah, shoot me an email. I'd love to figure out what that entails. Okay, so that covers basically all of the questions that I had on the spreadsheets. So I'm going to go through now and look at all the questions in the live chat. I'll leave Astro Pixel Processor up in the meantime so you guys can look at my Dolphin Head RGB data. Okay. Let's see. You have a question about my mini bike. Please ask away. I love my mini bike. I'll start talking about it since you brought it up. You don't have to ask me. It's a Coleman B200R, and I have a modified engine governor, and I have a continuous variable torque mod on it, and it goes 45 miles per hour, 45.6 miles per hour now, as of today. And the stock speed is 20, so it's a lot of fun. Do you sell gear? I do not sell gear. Is there anything needed besides the head unit on an AM5N? I didn't buy the tripod. Nothing else is needed for this. What would be really handy is if you sent there's 3 M6 bolts that are used to attach the tripod flange onto the base plate of the mount. We do need 3 M6 bolts to attach your mount to the pier plate. So just send the mount head and 3 short M6 bolts, and you're sorted. How do you measure seeing at the observatory? We measure it qualitatively. We do not have a seeing monitor on site, but we do have a number of large OTA systems that we do ask those customers, what's the seeing like? And they report that it's very, very good in the summer. In the wintertime, there's a bit more jet stream, so we're kind of learning as we go for the super long focal length seeing, but we think it's pretty suitable. Merry Christmas. If you want to get into astrophotography cheaply, you may want to look into scopes like the Sea Star. Yes, I concur. The Sea Stars are pretty cheap, and they actually do work at remote observatories as well. We have two of them on site currently. So it's a great way to get in if you want to use them remotely. It is totally an option that works. Do you think the 224 MC is still a good camera? It depends. Good depends on what your goal is. I've personally never used the 224 MC, but it really just depends on what your goal is. I'm not sure. You guys need a cook out there yet? Not yet. I do cook a lot though. Should I buy an EQ35M Pro for $550 as a first mount for my EOS R and 14 to 300 millimeter lens? That's a good question. I don't have any direct hands-on experience with the EQ35 Pro. I have set one up at the observatory. It has a aperture 6-inch newt on it, and it's been running pretty well apparently. So I know of one person who is successfully using an EQ35M, but I don't have any hands-on experience with that mount, so it's hard to say. A Skywatcher Star Adventure or any other kind of sky tracker would also probably work. It's just a question of how much you want to like future-proof your mount capability for if you're planning to get a big telescope in the future. You ordered the power strip. You suggested it uses Wi-Fi. How would I control it from home? So if you've ordered the Casa power strip and you intend to use it at the remote observatory, all that you need to do to help us get it set up is you have to give us a login to your Casa account and turn off two-factor authentication, and then we'll log into your account. We will configure the device, and then we'll hand you back your account. You change the password, and then it'll be set up for use over the Wi-Fi. What happened to your Sierra remote FSQ 106 setup? Is it the FSQ 106 you now have at Starfront? If so, why did you move it? The FSQ 106 that I had at Sierra Remote Observatory is now at Deep Sky Chile, and the FSQ 106 that I currently have here at Starfront is a different FSQ 106. The reason that I moved it is because I have my observatory here now, and so I want to have my scopes at, the observatory where I'm at full time. Especially for the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere is kind of another story because I have no option but to go somewhere else. But it just makes more sense to have it here. I mean, I live here, so I'd rather use it for this business that I'm a part of than another one, especially if it's the same skies. So, but I still have a good relationship with SRO. Sierra Remote is a really, really nice observatory, especially if you are using very large telescopes like a CDK 17, CDK 20, CDK 24. It's the best site for hosting those massive telescopes just for the consistency of their seeing quality. So yeah, great observatory, just not my focus and what I want to do with astronomy. I want this site to be one that's more for the lower end of people, the people that can't afford the big 24s. What are your thoughts on the eagle? I've had I have a lot of thoughts on the eagle. If you have an eagle that works well, then they're good, but a lot of eagles break. A lot of them. We've had maybe 4 eagle computers break here on site, and I actually just tried to save one today. I had to its Windows got corrupted, and I had to go try to repair Windows with a USB, and I was unsuccessful. So, I mean, the Eagle's cool. It's just they break all the time. And I like the Eagles, though. I like the idea of them. I have one in Chile, I have one in Namibia, and they've been going well for the one in Namibia has been going for like 2 years, and the one in Chile, which was previously at SRO, has been going for like 3 years. So you just got to get your hands on a good one and hope that they don't implode. If you have a small scope, why can't you have an electronic flat panel with the light price tier? I think you mean mini. We do permit flat panels on the light tier, but not on the mini. It's just the rules. It's just what they are. We do have a lot of internal discussion about what we want to do regarding the flat panels on minis, but currently the group consensus is to not have them. I may disagree, but I may defer to the group on this. Hey, C Star got mentioned on the YouTubes. Yeah. Someone wants to come out and work at the observatory. How does that work in terms of living space? Bring your own RV type of thing. Yeah, the living space thing is an issue. We're currently like, we did have a spare spot, like, for someone to come stay in if they wanted to, like, go for a trial run, but that space is now full, so we don't really have that extra space at the moment. But I suppose you'd either have to crash. If one of the RVs was empty, you could use it. But that's something we'd have to plan together in advance. Could you do what you do with processing if you only had PixInsight? No. I'm a Photoshop boy. AM3 plus ASCAR 65 PQH. No flat panel, no filter reel. Is that 149? Yeah. That should still fit even with the filter reel, but ASCAR 65 is pretty small. The entire astrophotography community wants you to succeed. How's your business doing now? It's doing great. It's a great time. I'm having a blast. Is industrial PC a good option to use? I have never used an industrial PC, but I can only assume that an industrial PC is supposed to be hardened and good to use under, a lot of load for a lot of time. So it's probably good. Uh, I've never tried one. Do y'all have running water, etc., etc.? Yeah, we have power. We got fiber internet. We have running water. I have to use propane for heat and stove. That's the only unfortunate thing about being out here in the winter, but for the rest of it, it's actually pretty nice. My equipment is en route to Safaro. What is the typical time to be up and running? Can't wait to start imaging. The typical setup time that we quote for people is between 2 to 3 weeks, but this can vary wildly from same day up to the 3 weeks. And all depends on stuff like what the queue is at the given moment. Like if there's people in front of you, if you're sending a mount that we've never seen before, that's probably the biggest thing that'll increase your wait time. Because we have to design and manufacture our own pier plates to physically adapt your stuff. to go onto our peers. So that's probably going to add the most to your time, but we're pretty fast now. So I don't imagine many situations in which you'll wait a full 3 weeks, but it should be pretty quick. Do you plan to build living space out at the observatory? It's definitely a possibility, depending on the number of scopes and the number of people needed to support the scopes. A living space may become necessary. We're not there yet, but it's something we think about. Hello from Argentina. Can you go take a picture of Chuck's rig in building 4? I want to make an emoji in his Discord server. Yeah, I can. Maybe. I'll probably forget, to be honest, but I'll try to remember. Do you plan on adding a seeing monitor and an all sky cam and a weather station? Yes. Yes to all of these things. The all sky camera is actually installed already, and it just needs to be configured for the website. So that'll be coming online very shortly. A weather station is probably the last priority, but seeing monitor is something that we've been thinking about or looking into. Most of our customers are undersampled, so it's not super duper critical, but I think a lot of people just want to know what the number is. So if it makes the customers happy, I think we're going to do it at some point. Currently shooting right now, my deck guiding keeps spiking up. If you have issues on deck, the thing that you need to look out for is whether or not you're having a guide correction reversal issue. The deck line should only be moving linearly away, like just a straight line with a given slope, and all you have to do to fight it is push in one direction. So if your auto guiding is going up and down in deck, then that means your aggression is too high or your minimum movement parameter is too sensitive, and you need to modify both so that your deck line is only pushing in the direction it needs to, and then that should help a lot with your spikes. If that doesn't do it, I would suggest repolar lining your mount. You might also have stiction, depending on what your mount is. There's a whole host of issues, but those are the things I would look at first. How many telescopes are you hosting? It's over 200. It's like 220, 230, I think. I haven't counted in a minute. How many AM5s? An ungodly amount of AM5s. There are tons of them. Hey, if you don't have the guts to send your equipment, you can always drop it off. We accept drop-offs in person. I have never been to Big Bend, but I am planning to go to Big Bend at the end of January. How do I cover my telescope for darks or use Batinov mask because autofocusers do not work perfectly? Batinov masks do not work for remote observatories because it requires that manual intervention. What you'll need is to use the autofocuser. The autofocuser will be good enough, I promise you. For darks, what we do is we cover up people's telescopes with their lens caps, and we let them take darks. The ways that we do this is, so if you want to take darks on your own time, like you say, oh, I want to do them tonight, you'll submit a ticket to us, and then we'll go ahead and install the lens cap. And there is the technical support time associated with this task. But if you don't want to deal with paying for the time, we offer a free service for taking darks. So what I do every full moon, I put out a Google sign up sheet and I say, if you want your lens cap installed on full moon, tell me your scope, tell me your building, your name, your Discord, and I'll go and cap up your scope for free. That way I can do all of them in one batch, and then the next day I go and uninstall all of them. And we do it free that way because it decreases the number of tickets that it creates, and it decreases, the amount of time I have to sort through and filter through things. And I think it's just convenient. Most people don't have too much to shoot on the full moon anyways, so it just works pretty well. Do you see a big difference in imaging between a dark Bortle 4, Bortle 3, up to a Bortle 1? Yes. What I will say is that it depends a lot on what exactly you're shooting and how big the city or the light source is that's causing the light pollution. I've imaged pretty frequently from locations that have large light domes, like north of the Phoenix Valley. I imaged a lot in a place called Bloody Basin, which is, an hour and a half hour north of downtown Phoenix. And looking north, the skies are quite dark. Looking south, they're very, very bad. And so, giving that one number, I think the roofs are opening. That one number of Bortle doesn't really encapsulate the situation quite well, especially once you start getting into the Bortle 4, Bortle 3 territory. It gets a little fuzzy. So I'd say it's easier to tell the difference like Bortle 9 through Bortle 6. And then once you drop down into like Bortle 4, it rapidly gets darker. There's a pretty big difference between Bortle 4 and Bortle 1. Bortle 3, 2, and 1 are all quite similar and highly dependent on the light dome and the direction and size of the dome and the target you're shooting. Imagine imaging the same target with all those scopes making an image. We do it. We do it every month. Starfront Collective. Did you ever think that a 500 scope could work at a remote observatory? I honestly never thought about it. But they do. What's up? For me, a Photoshop subscription is necessary. I think the technical darkest skies in the entire U.S. can be found in the Alvord Desert in eastern Oregon. Very technically, that should be the darkest. Roof's opening. You're thinking of starting an Astro channel and you've already done a few live streams, but you haven't uploaded any videos. What would be your tips for starting to upload videos? I honestly don't know. I think I'm the worst YouTuber on the face of the earth, to be honest. I'm still trying to figure out my identity as it comes to the YouTube platform, so I don't think I can offer any good advice about YouTube. But if I figure it out, I'll let you know. Oh, the roofs are open. I think it's still pretty patchy on the clouds. This is our status page on the observatory, by the way. It looks like it might be clear enough to shoot. Which also means I have to work. Let's try running the Takahashi here really quick. I've been shooting the Dark Shark. Looks like I left my camera on cooling mode. That's great. Yeah, I'm gonna home my mount. This is for everyone who has a scope here at Starfront. Home your mount before you run it. This is me doing it right now with the Paramount Mighty. I home my mount before I start, and then I have no issues. And my mount's going to go find home, and I'm going to queue up my imaging run, which I'm doing the dork short. 150 subframes for 5 minutes. So once my mount finishes finding home, sometimes I have issues. There's a funny thing with Starfront staff where if we catch any of each other with mounts that are not parked at the end of the night, we always call out the person for being down bad, for not parking or homing their mount properly at the end of the sequence. And it's usually me. Anyways, I'm starting the imaging run. Do you periodically check the tightness of OTA rings, saddles, etc. to prevent issues? Yes, I actually do this. And there are scopes that are more susceptible to these issues than others. In particular, the 10 micron GM1000, the knobs for that mount are not good, and they'll come loose with big changes in temperature. So either like the clutch on the mount axis will slip if you go from a hot day, very hot day when you tighten the knobs, to a very cold day when they shrink. We've seen 10 microns that, they'll go to slew, but they'll just like go limp and lose the ability to actuate the mount with that big temperature swing. So I always check 10 micron gear clutch knobs as well as 10 micron saddle knobs, because those are the worst offenders. But for everything else, once you lock down a knob, chances are you're going to be good. Yeah, we do also think about the dark sky experience quite a bit. Yeah, I've done it for Antoine, Galactic Hunter. I've seen their mount go through that once before, but it's simple enough. Whenever I know there's a big temperature change, or whenever I walk past a 10 micron, I'll give it the old knob tightening and save myself the issue at a later date. But it looks like it's clear enough to shoot. I'm doing my autofocus, so this means it's going to be a pretty late night for me because the weather is not guaranteed to be great tonight, and I'm going to be monitoring the conditions. My camera's already cooled down. I kept it negative 10 degrees all day. It was a cold, cold day today. Cold and windy. While I'm sitting here, I actually also have to diagnose a small mount issue. I just have to end task here on the on-step service and reconnect my telescope mount. Oh, looks like I've dropped connection. Okay. Looks like I've got my own tickets to handle tonight as well as some other ones. Thinking about getting an Edge 8 and putting it on the AVX. Do you think that this is a good idea? I'm not a huge fan of the AVX, but I wouldn't put the Edge 8 as past the capability of the AVX necessarily. they're not, it's not great, but it's tough to give a alternative suggestion to the AVX without the budget. Can dew heaters run 24 hours? No. Um, if you have dew heaters here at the observatory, they have to be on controllers because I've over the summer I had some dew heaters plugged in that were the 24-hour, they're just on all the time dew heaters, and those things get the scopes really hot and it's not a good idea. So if ever I see them without controllers, I don't plug them in. What do you think about third axis balancing for the SEM 40? Um, I wouldn't overthink it too much. If you're getting into third axis balancing for a guided system, you might be dialing in a bit too hard on the balance, but I mean, it depends. If you have a super long focal length, then maybe it's worth it, but otherwise, it's questionable. I don't think I've ever done a third axis balancing either. Yeah, I have never used my dew heater. I actually don't even have dew heaters at the observatory, so, you know. A bit of a new question. You have a ZWO mini finder guider, a 120 mini bundle, and have been trying to focus it. The stars are not very sharp and seem to have a haze around them. Any ideas? That haze that you're seeing comes from... Oh my goodness, so many ASCOM errors. That haze is ultraviolet light, and you either just accept the haze, or you can try to mess around with the focus, or you can put in a UV IR blocking filter, and that should take care of it. But whenever I see those halos, I just let it be, because the halos aren't going to affect the guiding. As long as your stuff can find the centroid, then it's just cosmetic. What one super telephoto lens do you recommend working with for optical? I like the Rokinon 135, but I don't really use any super telephotos. Oh, is my mic too far away from me, Potato Lord? Are my audio levels good? I know I have my mic pretty far away, but hopefully the sound is good. Any other hobbies you have than Astro? Yes, I have a new hobby, which is working on my mini bike engine. I'm having all kinds of plate solve errors for no reason. You play any instruments? I've dabbled a little bit in a bunch of instruments, but I've never stuck with anything long enough to get actually good. I don't know why I'm not plate solving right now. What's going on? All right, since I hate troubleshooting on stream, I'm going to end the stream and work on tickets and my telescopes. I was not expecting it to get clear, but now that it's clear, it means there's work to be done. So I'm going to go handle some business, and then I might come back depending on how sleepy I am to edit the dolphin head image. We will see. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the Q&A. And I'll catch you guys on another stream next Sunday. I think Sunday is going to be my streaming day. When's the Astro party at SF? We're talking about it. We are talking about it. Yeah, cheers, everyone. Clear skies. And anyone who's in here from Starfront, you better be running it up tonight. If I see your scope parked, you are going to get publicly shamed in chat. Merry Christmas.